They can run, but they rarely get away, night or day, in rural and urban settings. High-speed chases can be dangerous and terrifying. But when equipped with the latest technology and the best training, law enforcement has the upper hand. Now, Police Pursuit on Modern Marvels. At speeds in excess of 100 miles per hour, a reckless criminal with no regard for the people or property in his path will do anything and go anywhere to avoid being caught. For law officers, these are worst-case, stress-filled scenarios with unpredictable outcomes that unfold second by second.
They've committed a violation and they just want to get away, and they have total disregard for their safety as well as anybody else's. That's what I found out to be the case.
Anytime an officer gets in pursuit, there's excitement. I mean, you're chasing this car, you have no idea why it's running. Your heart is in your throat a few times when you go through some of these intersections, because even though you got their siren blaring, you slow down, people don't pay attention. They got the windows rolled up and they're listening to the radio.
The thing about when you're in a pursuit, I never was afraid I was going to get killed or hurt. My concern was always what the offender would do, and I think that's pretty common for police officers when you talk to them. I was scared what he was going to do to somebody innocent.
When they get out there, you've got a 4,000-pound vehicle. That's a weapon, you know, when it goes at a high rate of speed. And if you're in a pursuit situation, you're endangering the life of the officer as well as citizens.
But police officers have more and more technologically sophisticated help.
This patrol car is equipped with the latest in pursuit technology.
Recently, the California Highway Patrol implemented heads-up display systems that provide important data on see-through screens near the windshields of the patrol cars.
This is called the combiner. It reflects the image from what you see on the screen back there, and it allows us to see the radar, registration, or whatever we might need on this screen, so we don't have to look down. We can always keep our eye on the road, and we can also see through the screen, so it doesn't inhibit our vision.
Screen radar.
The heads-up display, or HUD, is also activated by voice commands, which during a pursuit enable the driver to keep his hands on the steering wheel as he checks the license plate number and registration information of the suspect's vehicle.
HUD registration.
HUD registration.
Registration number 1126918.
Registration number 1126918.
Registration check.
Registration check.
HUD next.
HUD next.
This system is just one component in the latest generation of patrol car. The cockpit is remarkably uncluttered compared to most police cars. Lights, sirens, radar, and other equipment functions can be controlled with one touch on a small, ergonomically shaped control pod next to the driver. These high-tech components were designed and integrated for a specific purpose: to help police be effective, yet safe, while driving on patrol and in pursuits.
Well, I think historically, law enforcement from the very beginning has been in pursuit of the suspects.
Vehicular pursuits date to the arrival of the automobile at the turn of the 20th century. The earliest motorized fleets were organized in big cities between 1908 and 1911. Police departments formed motorcycle squads because of the increasing difficulty officers on foot, horse, and bicycle were having apprehending speeders. Motorcycles of the time resembled bicycles and were relatively simple to maintain, less expensive than automobiles, and more maneuverable in most situations than the cars of the day.
Of course, we weren't back there 100 years ago, but it's pretty safe to assume the first time a beat cop told somebody to stop and they jumped in a car and drove off, everybody stood around scratching their head and said, I think we need cars.
Other than the word police painted on the door, nothing was added or modified on police vehicles to set them apart from personal automobiles. Not until the 1920s were red lights and sirens installed to alert pedestrians and traffic on crowded streets that a police car was approaching.
First sirens that started were mechanical in nature, and they were activated by the wind. And the faster you went, the shriller the sound and the louder the sound of the siren and the higher it would go.
About this time, the first mobile radios for police cars were installed. But they required several yards of wire wrapped across the roof to act as an antenna.
You get experimentation with one-way radio broadcasts, but radios are huge. They're tube systems, and the police agencies contracted with a local commercial broadcast radio system. And so you'd hear country western music, and then you'd hear 1A55. There's a radio call for you down on Main Street. You need to go there.
The danger of gunfire during a pursuit, as dramatized in Hollywood movies, was all too real. Exchanging gunfire became so prevalent, it spawned the business of adding bulletproof armor to both police and gangsters' cars. Perhaps that's best illustrated by this 1930 V16 Cadillac, built for notorious gangster Al Capone. With a top speed of 120 miles per hour, it featured bulletproof glass and quarter-inch armor plate. It also had 3-inch portholes for machine guns and rifles to shoot through. City gangsters weren't the only ones with special automobiles. Their country cousins also modified their getaway cars extensively to carry illegal goods.
Moonshiners are people who would make alcohol at home. They would make it to sell it during Prohibition. But they would run it all around, and they would have false gas tanks. They would hide this stuff in. And of course, they would zoom around and try to get away from the police, who would try to catch them.
Police scrambled to keep up. They gained the advantage in pursuits with the addition of advanced radio communications equipment, operated by a dispatcher who could rally distant officers to aid in rural or urban pursuits.
He would be able to maintain, throw a switch to where he could then broadcast to our traffic division, our motor officers, and other patrol divisions that this pursuit was going on.
In the 5th Precinct, the address 703 Bowery.
In the post-World War II years, cars became larger, faster, and more reliable. This was the beginning of the modern police car.
Being late 40s, early 50s, we begin to see two-way communication between the police headquarters and the radio car.
The new generation of police cars featured brighter lights and louder sirens, again designed as public safety devices to warn motorists and pedestrians the police were approaching. But some inventions were created to actually stop pursuits. This ingenious bumper grapple was a clever application of a tool usually installed on tractors and designed to pick up farming items. Once attached to the front bumper of a patrol car, the grapple could grasp the rear bumper of a car that needed to be stopped, assuming a police car could get close enough to the violator on the run. But the real push came in the engineering of police cars that could be driven faster and safer.
In the late 60s, the auto manufacturers started to look at what they could do and started testing cars for pursuit and police work. They were looking at brakes in particular, alternators, suspension, because you were hitting bumps and things like that.
Police embraced the muscle cars of the 60s and 70s, like this Chevrolet Impala, because they had powerful engines and were built for performance and handling. Since then, automakers have continued to cater to the law enforcement market by offering police packages for some of their models, with factory modifications to the engine, suspension, and electrical systems. But as the automobile progressed technologically, the critical role of the driver also needed to be improved. Police departments would soon subject officers to the rigors of pursuit instruction and advanced driver training programs. According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, police pursuits in the United States result in more than 300 deaths per year. Police Pursuit will return on Modern Marvels.
Now, it's a matter of public record that police officers are better drivers than almost any other group whose job requires them to drive. But better isn't good enough. They must be the best.
Driver training, especially for police pursuits, was virtually non-existent until the late 1970s, when films like this started to send the message.
No other driving profession is required to engage in pursuit. Firemen don't. Ambulances don't. Not even auto racers have to speed through cross traffic, bust intersections, or avoid pedestrians. Only cops.
Before you were on your own, you learned by ear. And that was the practice. You didn't really get any driving training for pursuits when I went through the academy.
It's come a long way since then, and now we're to the point where we have a 6-day program that the recruits have to go through, which is mandated by the state. We discuss basic driving techniques all the way up to full-fledged pursuits. Again, pursuits being the most dangerous thing we do.
Each student enrolled in these high-performance pursuit training programs starts with the basics of vehicle operation.
The very first thing that we tell the student is when you start your shift, check your car out. You can be the best driver in the world, but if your car's not ready to go, you better leave it there. And we have them make a complete circle check of the vehicle. You check the tires, you check the brakes, the horn, the windshield wipers, the sirens, everything in that vehicle. So once you get through the vehicle check, now you're ready to go out on the road.
We do a little bit of lecture, beginning with hand positioning. We teach 9 and 3 now, not the old 10 and 2, and certainly not the one-handed drive, which most people have resorted to. Also, we teach shuffle steering, which means we shuffle from one hand to the other, the steering wheel, and we never cross over the 12 o'clock position on the steering wheel.
Driving instructors contend that positioning the hands at 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock on the wheel is a more stable way to steer the car. In order to drive safely at high speeds in a pursuit, officers must comprehend the fundamentals of vehicle dynamics, such as weight transfer.
If you've got a 2,800-pound car, that's almost a ton and a half, and you make an abrupt turn to the left or right, you're going to make a weight transfer of all that weight. In other words, if I turn hard to the left here, all that weight's going to go to this right side. What we train here is do not make that turn while you're braking. When you brake, the front of the vehicle goes down. So now you have a combination of factors. If you turn and brake at the same time, okay, I'm going to turn, I'm going to get on the brake here and turn. Now I've got weight going to that right front, and I can put the 3/4 of the weight of the vehicle on that one tire.
Transferring this much weight to one corner of the car can easily exceed the tire's ability to grip the road and may lead to a loss of control, especially when the road conditions are wet or icy. Most training facilities have a skid pad, an area of pavement that can be deliberately watered down to produce slick conditions and allow better training for rain or snow environments.
We would start with basic driving, backing skills, knowing all 4 corners of the car, basic accident avoidance techniques. Then we would bring them up to another level called emergency response, which is basically teaching them racing lines, how to drive the car at high performance levels using minimal amount of power. Then we take them from that and move them more into an introduction to pursuit driving, which can be quite a task for someone who's never talked on the radio while you're trying to tell a direction and no traffic around. We take that and bump it up to scenario-based training.
And accelerate up.
Students participate in a series of high-speed exercises to chase down one of the instructors who drives a rabbit car. Cadets also receive instruction on how to approach railroad crossings in pursuit situations.
The train crossing activates. Now, many times during a pursuit exercise, what we'll do if we're the person being pursued, we'll stop right about here. Because a lot of driving, like anything else, is common sense and using your head. We want to see if the cadet is got his wits about him and doesn't stop on a railroad track with the signal going off.
As the curriculum advances, officers experience greater levels of difficulty in handling the patrol cars and staying calm, focused, and in control. They also learn to work in teams to mimic the typical coordination of multiple units involved in pursuits. The instructors push the scenarios and the students as far as possible without endangering the officers or the equipment. But there's another way to provide training where the situations can seem extremely dangerous, yet are still safe for the students. Computerized simulators. Driver training simulators came online for police during the 1970s and were operated by the computers of the era.
Some of the first simulators for pursuit driving were pretty simple. I mean, it was, You get more complex stuff in an arcade today than you got back then. But today's simulators are very sophisticated. They give you a three-dimensional like view. It's a surround type view. They develop cockpits so that you can actually sit like you're in the feel of the police car.
Within today's computer-generated environment, digital pursuits can be custom designed for specific training scenarios. Students can hone their skills in risk assessment, traffic evaluation, and tactical procedures, as if they were out on the streets of their communities. But one of the most effective ways to stop a pursuit can't really be taught by computer: the pit maneuver.
It's a technique as opposed to actual tactics, and I think it's brought on by the fact that we now know more about the dynamics of the vehicles that not only we're chasing, but the ones we're using, and that is the pit maneuver, or the pursuit intervention technique.
The pursuit intervention technique originated in Southern California during the late 1970s. It came from the bump and run technique used in stock car racing. The pit maneuver is initiated by the lead patrol car in a pursuit. That officer gently taps the front bumper of his car against the rear fender of the suspect's car. This causes the rear wheels of the suspect to lose traction, resulting in a spin-out. The trailing patrol cars carefully position themselves in order to block the suspect from traveling any further. At driving schools, not all training is behind the wheel. Officers also receive instruction on how to use other highly effective methods of halting a pursuit.
One of the things we have now is a technology that has come to us recently is the stop stick. The stop stick is a tire deflation device that we've used to stop cars. Now, the stop stick will actually hit the ground, and the suspect will run over it, and then it's jerked off the roadway so that the other officers can go by. This one here has been cut out. We took the outer coping off, and it's a foam. And inside the foam are triangular quills. And no matter how this thing lands, the quills will be pointed up. The quill will actually hit the tire, and when it does, the top of the quill, which is very sharp, will come out, and now you have a quill that's inside the tire that will deflate the tire at a very slow rate.
A slow tire leak gives the driver more control than rapid deflation or blowout. Many departments use a similar device, known as a spike strip. This accordion-like design also features hollow quills, and like the stop stick, can be quickly deployed and retracted. However, standing on the side of a busy highway in close proximity to a speeding pursuit is inherently risky business.
Sometimes they've been very useful in helping us stop the pursuit. Sometimes not, you know. They're not easy to deploy. They're kind of dangerous sometimes to our officers as well. While they're an additional tool, they're not foolproof. It's not the answer to everything.
The inability to predict what a criminal will do or what decisions he'll make while being pursued by law enforcement makes it difficult to train for every possible scenario. Nonetheless, all agree that training is beneficial.
Not just training for training's sake, but quality training. I see that as very, very important. On my business card, I have a motto: failure to train is training to fail.
Training may give officers a huge advantage in pursuit situations, but it's the technology in their patrol cars that really puts them in control. In the United States, police apprehend suspects in more than 72% of pursuits. Police Pursuit will return on Modern Marvels. In the same way that police officers rely on their partners to watch their backs, they also count heavily on their patrol cars to keep them safe and effective, especially during pursuits. That means each cruiser should receive the best maintenance and be equipped with the best technology available. Woodcrest Vehicle Center in Riverside, California, is one of the companies that converts four-door sedans into virtual rolling police stations.
This is a 2004 Ford Crown Vic Police Interceptor that's specially built for patrol car use in the United States by Ford Motor Company.
It's estimated that Ford supplies about 80% of all law enforcement vehicles in North America. The Crown Victoria models can be special ordered with a police package that includes high-speed rated tires, larger brakes, and cooling systems.
The wires run up
plus
here,
more powerful alternators to handle the amperage loads from the extra police
all the way
electronics.
in the back. First step is we bring the car into the shop, and my technicians gut it. They pull all the seats out of it and everything like that, and we start installing our products in it. Here's a mount that we're going to put the computer screen. As you can see, we've got most of the dash out. We have to make some modifications in here for a mount for the MDC scene so that the officer can focus on the screen without taking his eyes off the road. Let's move on over to the other cars and see some more of the equipment. What we have over here is, this is their MDC, or a computer, just like you'd have at your house. The way we look at this is the officer's office, basically. So he travels around with his own computer. In particular, in this car, there's another thing we load in the MDC, and we'll show you a little later. It actually controls the siren of the vehicle as well. The other thing that these operate is there's a full data system that they can get back to their department, run somebody's license plate, see if there's any warrants out anybody, of course, maps, you know, and all the other things. He can write reports onto a disk, go back in his department, print them out, and he's done. So this is a very important part of this car as far as the officer is concerned.
This office is designed to keep everything within reach.
What we have are 3 microphones, the 800 megahertz, the PA, and the county-wide 800. Up here is an all-new touchscreen technology. It comes up on there. Just with a press of a button, you have code 3.
Code 3 refers to a police pursuit or emergency in which both lights and sirens are to be used. The newest light bars are low profile and aerodynamically designed. They're fitted with high-intensity LED bulbs that are extremely bright and visible from miles away. During a pursuit that's a Code 3 alert, the patrol car displays red, blue, and white flashing lights in a 360-degree pattern, leaving little doubt this officer means business.
The TACnet system includes
a touchscreen, mobile data center, or MDC, does more than control lights, sirens, and radios. It can also receive and transmit digital information instantly.
And it could be encapsulated in data files, images, pictures of wanted individuals, suspects. Could be a paragraph of information about Homeland Security warnings and things that the intelligence community wants to pass on to law enforcement.
InfoCop is software technology that provides law enforcement with access to local, state, and federal crime databases. By entering the information request once, an officer can tap into 8 massive databases and receive data and photos in just 2 to 4 seconds through a broadband wireless internet connection.
Internet protocol is the communication standard on the planet. You know, the IP technologies really enable the police and fire communication systems to go into the future that will hold more multimedia, will get larger, and be more interconnected with each other.
And if the patrol car is equipped with a digital camera, police can start streaming video files in real time. The ability to relay wireless data on this level has immediate applications that may even help stop police pursuits much faster.
So that the police officer, when they do a traffic stop, can turn on that camera and have a live feed of that traffic stop, not just for the TV program a month later, but live back in the dispatch center. That it can just send so much information to the other responding officers. That's the biggest thing that we're going to see.
Often, the target of a pursuit is a thief who has stolen a car and tries to outrun the law. Lately, police have received more help from victims of car theft because the car owners have installed cooperative systems.
There are essentially 2 types of cooperative systems that can locate your car and perhaps shut it down. The first kind of system works on with a radio frequency, and it is installed in your car. It works on triangulation.
LoJack introduced its patented technology in 1986. In 1989, the Federal Communications Commission allocated a police radio band so that LoJack's stolen vehicle recovery network could work nationally.
Your car puts out a signal that says, "I'm stolen." And the police officers have a device that says, "There's a stolen car nearby." And what it does is, with arrows, it gives them a direction and the signal strength meter, so you know you're turning the right way and you can eventually find the car.
In contrast, OnStar is a popular cooperative system that utilizes the space-age technology of global positioning satellites.
It gives you the latitude and longitude based on where you are, and that's translated by computer program into a street address or location. GPS has the ability to be everywhere because it can be all around the world, and it's far more accurate and far more real-time data can be gotten from GPS.
GPS transceivers have found their way onto police cars as well.
In Dallas, and I'm sure most of the departments around the country have what they call an AVL or a GPS system in the car. So a supervisor at a communications location or even at a substation can actually monitor a pursuit from their office.
And this is where it shows all the beats in this particular region. I'm signed on as a Southwest officer. Shows me all the beats, shows me all the streets. You can zoom that in, and on this particular device, all you can see is yourself. And this blue car here shows it's me, and what he should see by our policy.
Law enforcement agencies are hopeful that one day soon, cooperative systems will integrate with GPS technologies on all vehicles in order to produce a safe method of shutting off the engine of any car at any time, anywhere, and thus bringing an immediate end to pursuits.
The ALERT is the Association of Law Enforcement Emergency Response Trainers. The mission of ALERT is to look for ways to make pursuits safer, is that we bring in new technologies from all over the country. A man invented a thing called the HALT system, and what it is, it's a radar-type machine that whenever a car has that system on it, you actually shoot the car with the radar, and it makes the car basically stop. The fuel lines will shut down, and the car will eventually come to a complete rest.
However, the suspect vehicle must be equipped with a receiver in order to work. Another disabling technology is called P-Cell. It allows officers to program in the make, model, and color of the suspect's car. Then a signal is sent that causes the vehicle's flashes to operate. That lets the officer know that he has programmed the right car and allows him to see if any other cars in the area will be affected. Once locked onto the suspect, another button sends direct pulses to shut down the car's engine. Each of these ideas shows promise to police agencies.
So I think the technology is already here. It's just not usable necessarily in our hands, but I think it will be here, and it'll be interesting. You know, it'll be a safer way of stopping a pursuit, you know, if you can shut them down automatically.
It's my hope that there will be technology available, maybe something as common as the seatbelt is today in vehicles, and the tools available to law enforcement where we can safely stop these pursuits as quickly as we can.
In the meantime, the most important tool police have during the pursuit of a fleeing suspect is not some high-tech device in the patrol cars, but co-workers riding hundreds of feet above them. The vast majority of police pursuits in the United States involve men as suspects. Drugs or alcohol play a role in close to 50%. Police Pursuit will return on Modern Marvels. Perhaps the most effective equipment police have for pursuit situations is aircraft.
Helicopter's tremendous because when you get them up in the sky and they've got a panoramic vision and they can see everything. And you know what? That violator is not going to get away. Even if we have to turn off the pursuit, the helicopter can still spot it and follow it.
During the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, decommissioned military airplanes and helicopters were acquired by police departments to support the patrol cars as an eye in the sky.
Well, we actually had helicopters on the department in the late 50s. They were primarily for, as far as LAPD is concerned, for traffic. In about 1967, they started to build air support division where they would be up and patrolling the residential neighborhoods and becoming involved in following pursuits and whatever.
These whirlybirds gave police a new perspective from which to coordinate the ground units.
In the early years of the helicopter, they discovered it was very effective for patrol and pursuits, and the department put numbers on the top of the car, and that way the air unit could see the number and tell the unit exactly where to turn or where to stop or where to go.
In the lakefront city of Chicago, the police equipped their helicopters with pontoons to take officers where patrol cars couldn't go. Rural communities quickly discovered that air support was the best way to keep fleeing suspects from disappearing into the countryside.
So
Today, helicopters have become integral to almost all metropolitan law enforcement agencies' pursuit policies.
We utilize helicopter, and that's actually one of the issues that I was looking at recently, whether we should call off the ground units when the helicopter is engaged or not.
Back when I first came on, there were a few police helicopters, but they were not always in position to help you out in a pursuit. Now we have police helicopters all over the place, and that is a big value to us, especially in an urbanized area in terms of trying to apprehend somebody.
But just as pursuit training is mandatory for officers in patrol cars, it's also required for helicopter pilots.
The crew in the helicopter, if they're well trained and well equipped, can take an average police pursuit and make it much safer and make the officers much more effective. What we do in the helicopter is to keep that bird's eye perspective, the big picture of the pursuit.
First and foremost, pilots and tactical flight officers, or TFOs, must be able to operate the helicopter safely.
Main rotor, passenger door, throttle, coming hot. G-switch, rotor brake, main rotor, passenger door, throttle.
The pre-flight checklist can have as many as 23 points to review before the crew scrambles to the scene of a pursuit.
This is a pretty standard configuration for a law enforcement helicopter. The pilot on the 206 series aircraft sits in this seat, the right seat, and that's not always the case in other aircraft. The TFO in a 206 series aircraft sits in the left seat, and if you'll notice that all the equipment, the tactical equipment, is arranged around the TFO. And for instance, off to the left we have the screen, which is used to view the daytime color camera and the infrared camera at night. And there's also a computerized moving map system we type in with a keyboard to find the location of a specific address. The computer actually takes us right to the address. Well, we've got low jack, and most people are familiar with what low jack is. Our range is much better than the ground units. Moving down the panel, we've got an 800 megahertz system that lets us talk to anybody on the San Diego Police Department. The radio right below that looks the same, but it's actually a digital 800 megahertz system that lets us talk to virtually any other law enforcement agency in the county that are on different frequencies. Audio panels for the pilot, co-pilot, VHF radios with a backup for the pilot to talk to the air traffic control. A GPS with a moving map system is below that.
A night sun is a 30 million candle power spotlight that can brighten a city block so officers in the air and on the ground can see the area as if it were daytime. But that's just the start of the night flying technologies.
These are our night vision goggles. This is what every pilot in the unit flies with every night. It's not just an option, it's a policy that when you take off and you're going to fly at night, you will have your goggles with you. These are your lifesavers.
Night vision goggles, or NVGs, were first tested during the Vietnam War. Since then, the scientific advancement of amplifying light has been quite literally night and day.
The hardest thing for a pursuit environment is you've got to have a pilot who is aware and situationally aware of what's going on around him. If it's pitch black out in front of him, it's very difficult to see the obstacles and things that are out there.
What we have here is night vision goggles. The night vision goggles are the latest technology for law enforcement to use in their pursuit. Just to break down what we're looking at here, this would be a left and right intensifier tube. This focus ring right here would be your objective focus ring. The focus ring back here is your diopter adjustment or your eyepiece focus ring. Near IR energy or ambient light goes in and becomes an electrical signal. Once it hits the phosphor screen, now we have another visible type signal. And then it goes through a fiber optic bundle, which goes to a small screen in the back of the goggles, and it becomes an image that now the human eye can see. And that's what a law enforcement pilot would be using to go out and try to find the bad guys, so to speak.
The result is astonishing visibility on the darkest nights. Pilots can clearly see the terrain below, providing a better view of a fleeing suspect or of a safe place for an emergency landing. Pilots can augment night vision with forward-looking infrared or FLIR systems.
Most of what the TFO does during the pursuit is to run, especially at night, is to run the infrared system, because almost all vehicle pursuits end up in foot pursuits. If you're using the FLIR, you're going to see the person through the bushes, no matter where they go. It's just a tremendous piece of equipment.
FLIR systems are cameras that are sensitive to the infrared light waves that emit from heat sources. They convert the thermal radiation into visible light. Usually the pilot wears the night vision goggles to see the area he's flying into, while the TFO uses the FLIR to concentrate on the suspect being pursued.
They can actually look inside the car and tell us if we have one or more occupants, whether or not there may be firearms in the vehicle, and things like that that we can't get from a ground level perspective when you're behind the car trying to chase it.
But while police pilots have an eye on the action below, they must also watch out for news helicopters buzzing above them.
Of course, we have to coexist with the media, and I know that. But many times when you have that type of a situation going down, the media does get in the way, especially when we call our helicopter unit up. And you have helicopters from all the different stations around. They do get in the way, and that creates a hazard many times.
They keep in contact with each other. They have a prescribed channel that they go to, especially if one helicopter is joining the police helicopter. Our helicopter will make contact with their pilot, let them know, hey, I'm behind you, I'm to your left, I'm to your right, or whatever, just to give them a heads up, hey, we're here, and they acknowledge that.
They need to get their shots, which we completely understand, but the cameras allow them to get up much higher, get the shots from a much safer altitude, and do their job. And we have a tremendous working environment with our local media. We have 3 news helicopters here in San Diego. It's not unusual at all to get LA-based helicopters chasing a pursuit down here.
The media's role in pursuit situations is often scrutinized and its purpose questioned.
At first, it was something new, and I guess later on we started asking ourselves, why are we doing this? I mean, sensationalism, is it for the ratings, you know, viewership? Even our viewers were calling and going, why? What purpose does it serve? So yeah, we started asking ourselves why.
Because they're cool. It's drama. You don't know how it's going to end. It's like a cliffhanger for however long it goes on. He could just pull over and give up. It could be some horrendous car crash. It could be any number of things that happen, but it's drama. And it's entertainment in many respects.
But the drama of pursuit isn't limited to cars on the freeways as seen on the evening news. It can also involve fast boats when a chase takes to the high seas. A typical turbine-powered police helicopter like the Bell 206 burns around 30 gallons of fuel per hour. Police pursuit will return on Modern Marvels. When it comes to pursuits on the water, nobody has done it longer or better than the U.S. Coast Guard.
Initial origins of the Coast Guard started out the beginning of our country from the Revenue Cutter Service. And the Revenue Cutter Service was actually initiated as a way to gain revenue for the country. So the Revenue Cutter Service would stop the merchant ships coming in and collect tariffs and duties, and if they didn't stop, then they would chase them down and actually stop them and make them pay up. So it's essentially the origins of the Coast Guard, and now beginning the pursuit almost 200 years ago.
2 centuries later, smugglers are still trying to bring their illegal cargo into the country by boat. And the Coast Guard still has a specialized fleet waiting for them. Boats like this 110-foot island-class cutter, the Edisto.
The ships are an excellent platform for pursuit. They have excellent sea capabilities. We have secure communications, which allow us to talk to our commanders. We also have high-speed capabilities. We have 2 engines on board that have a total of 6,000 horsepower, which enable us to reach speeds well in excess of 30 knots. So there are very few boats that we can't chase down at that speed. There are numerous situations where the Coast Guards are involved in pursuits. And those could be law enforcement cases where we're actually chasing down a drug-laden boat, a boat that, say, runs the border and has violated the laws of the United States, the customs laws.
In many ways, chases on the water parallel pursuits on the highway.
It's a lot of adrenaline pumping. I mean, it's a very high-stress situation. As a captain of the ship, you kind of have to take in everything into consideration. You're You're trying to do the mission of stopping the boat, but you also want to make sure that everyone on board the ship is safe. Any situation where you have the possibility of someone shooting at you or going onto a boat that you have no idea what's on board, but you know that they're doing something illegal, that could be dangerous.
Watch it! Gotta go on top of it! Stop your engine!
When a pursuit becomes difficult to manage, the Coast Guard has the ability to bring out the big guns, literally.
Behind me, you can see the 50 caliber machine guns that we use to actually fire warning shots and disabling fire if necessary to stop boats. We go through different forms of hailing, signaling, raising flags, flashing lights, using loud hailers, numerous things, and then the boat just won't stop. So at that point, we have to ask permission from our commanders, and depending on the situation, they will either authorize us or not to conduct warning shots and possibly disabling fire on the vessel. This is a 25mm chain gun, and this actually allows us to fire high explosive rounds into vessels if we have to stop them, or at the conclusion of a boarding, if we need to destroy the vessel and actually get rid of it so it's safe for other people to come by the area, then we are actually able to destroy the vessel with this gun.
Weather permitting, the task of piloting the cutter during a pursuit takes place high above the main deck.
This is the open bridge. We have the controls for the helm, the rudder, secure communications, electronic navigation system, and depth sounders, and also compasses and gyro compasses.
But when a chase is on, the real nerve center is one level below.
Welcome to the bridge of the Edisto, and on the bridge here we have numerous types of electronic communications which allow us to keep in touch with our commanders when we're engaging in a pursuit. We have satellite communications, which are all secure, and we have UHF, VHF, HF frequency ranges of communications. We also have differential GPS, which is a global positioning system for navigation. We utilize paper charts and electronic navigation systems via a computer, which allow us to safely navigate and continue our progress while we're in pursuit of a vessel. This is our primary radar on the ship. There's an additional radar on that side also. This radar allows us actually to track and to continuously monitor vessels. We are able to see their speed, what course they're going, and allows us to actually input an intercept course on them and track them down.
The Island-class cutters aren't the only ships in the fleet that engage in pursuits. Port security units use several smaller boats for patrol, including this 25-foot Boston whaler type design, equipped with serious firepower. This boat is among the fastest in the fleet and rips across the surface at about 46 miles per hour. Lightweight and powerful, very few boaters can outrun it. But this one can go from 0 to 50 miles per hour in about 3 seconds. But at only 27 feet, these smaller boats are limited to coastal areas or harbors, and they're not as comfortable in inclement weather as perhaps this 41-foot utility boat. It's a workhorse that has a 300-mile range and can patrol for 10 hours non-stop. The Coast Guard employs pursuit tactics similar to its landlocked counterparts, relying heavily on help from above.
Air support's great. That's one of the greatest things for a pursuit, is having eyes in the sky. Aircraft flying around that can actually see what's going on and can let you know where you need to go. So often we'll have air support, and that could be a C-130 type of aircraft.
Many of these C-130s are equipped with a Casper system, a high-powered infrared camera that can observe smugglers from miles away. More impressive is that live video can be transmitted directly to seafaring or land-based commanders. They can observe the pursuit as it unfolds in real time. This is one more example of the technology that makes it nearly impossible for violators to outrun the law and avoid prosecution. On the seas, in the air, and on land. With all the advantages law enforcement gains from these sophisticated technologies and training, none actually prevents pursuits from starting. As long as humans retain their innate fight-or-flight instincts, when cornered, some will choose to make a run for it. And for that reason, law enforcement will continue to push technology to find safer and more effective ways to minimize the risks of police pursuits.